So Rashida Tlaib, minimum wage should be $20 an hour, not $15. So before we get into this, something important to keep in mind, the fight for 15 is the biggest, movement for living wages that's out there. Keep in mind, the fight for 15 has been going on for a while. They've been around a minute. So when they first said fight for 15, they meant 15 at the time and immediately, not, hey, $15 an hour would be nice in 2025. I mean, at this point, fight for 15 is more emblematic than anything else. And it's emblematic of, or symbolic rather, of living wages. It's symbolic of living wages because now we're at the point where 15 is not quite enough to live on. Not only that, but the way the House proposed it, which is probably not going to pass the Senate anyway, but the way the House proposed it and it passed the House, it unrolls slowly and people aren't getting $15 an hour until 2025, which at that point, it's going to have to be higher anyway. So anyway, that's just important to keep in mind. All right. So what's she's saying here in the article? Rashida Tlaib of Michigan called for a minimum wage of $18 to $20 an hour Sunday, an increase over the $15 minimum wage bill passed by the House lawmakers Thursday. Tlaib spoke at an event in Detroit supporting One Fair Wage, an organization that lobbies for restaurant workers to be paid the federal minimum wage for non-tipped workers, according to a local Fox affiliate. She criticized the federal mandated minimum wage for tipped employees, which is $2.13 per hour. Think about that for 1 minute. People cannot live on those kind of wages, she said. We cannot allow people to be living off of tips and relying on tipped wages. Tlaib added that the $15 minimum wage should be adjusted. She also called out American Rising, a Republican political action committee that was at the event. By the way, when we started it, it should have been 15. Now I think it should be 20. Make sure that American Rising hears that. It should be $20 an hour, $18 to $20 an hour at this point. If wages would have kept up with inflation, we would be at about $22 an hour. And that was from a study from several years ago. We'd be at about $22 an hour now if wages kept up with inflation. Of course, it didn't. The minimum wage has been stagnant for about a decade now. It is $7.25 an hour. And, I love when people, parrot the right-wing talking points against living wages. Well, if you raise it to 15, what's to stop it? It'll be 20 soon, then it'll be 25, then it'll be 30. And when's it going to stop? How high is it going to be? When's it going to stop? Do you have this same concern about CEOs' salaries? It's 475 to 1 now. When's it going to stop? Jeff Bezos is worth billions of dollars. There are billionaires in the world. When's it going to stop? How is it you have the bandwidth to be concerned about the wages of workers, yet CEO salary, no big deal? Aren't you worried about ceilings there? The minimum wage should be a wage that a person can live on. Period. End of discussion. End of story. And she's addressing the fact, and what passed the House was very incremental, and it's not going to pass the Senate anyway. So what should have happened is that there should have been an opportunity to really go for the jugular, so to speak, and say, have a bill out there that was actual living wages. Because you know what it does have support of? People. The people want living wages. People don't want to work 2 and 3 jobs to live. And guess what? A living wage, you are providing the labor. When you are a worker, you are providing the labor, and I'm using labor in the broad sense here. You are providing the labor necessary for this company to function. The employer needs you. You are needed. So if you're not paid a living wage and you go on strike, they are hurting. And if they try to get someone else and that person demands a living wage too, they are still hurting and they have to give a living wage. That's the way it works. And guess what? Our country can afford it. Why? Because the CEO makes 475 times that of the average worker. That's why. And you can look at graph after graph and study after study of how wages for workers have gone like this, while wages for CEOs have gone like this. And it is to an unprecedented degree. It's to a degree that nobody could have ever predicted. And when you look at these, you can even read Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, a book that a lot of conservatives point to as their kind of go-to. Even in that book, Adam Smith never called for anything like that to happen. He never called for wages between CEOs and workers to get to this point. He was actually against it. He actually called for living wages. So she's right. In short, Rashida Tlaib's right. It should be at least $22 an hour now. And we're having trouble with any kind of legislation whatsoever. But at least she's making some noise about it, and someone in office is making noise about it.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know